So, all right. So we are going to take the topic here, why plants fail and what to do about it, And I guess the place to start from is just to remind ourselves the way everything started. You look into scripture, you look at Genesis story, and you see that the Bible talks about in the beginning, God. Then it tells us about the fact, the way state of things were. And it tells us that the Spirit of God hovered over the waters, right? Over the bad situation that was there, right? God did not just come and say, let it be, let it be, let it be. He had to, first of all, over. The word over there is the word to meditate. It's the word to think over. It's the word to plan, right? God had to plan before he went into execution. So the example we see of God is the place where God does not just do a thing. God does not just do a thing. God does not just rush into doing a thing, right? God, first of all, thinks about a thing, finishes it, then goes into execution. God finishes his work ever before he starts, right? That's the example God gives to us. Unfortunately, a lot of us think we're better than God. And we just go, oh, I want you to do something good. Oh, the Spirit is doing it. Oh, the work of God takes haste. Those are foolishness. Those are things that don't have a bearing on wisdom and don't have a bearing on God. The example we have in God is that everything is created twice, right? First, you plan it, then you go into execution. First of all, you have to create it in your mind. You have to create it in your thought. You have to conceptualize it. You have to build it ever before you begin to now go to the field and put it into execution. So you see that in the whole creation story, God, when he began to execute, was speaking things as if they were already in existence because he had already created them. God just said, let there be light, right? He said it in a way that it was already in existence. It was already existent in his mind. He had created it in his mind. God created the whole world in his mind ever before he came into the field and began to do all the let there be, let there be, let there be, right? That's the example of success for us. So if we're going to go into 2023, as we've been hearing every other person speak about, we have to finish 2023 in our mind. We have to conceptualize it. We have to decide, how do we want the whole of 2023 to be, right? Then before we start January 1, right? Jim Rohn, one of my mentors, will say that is the way to have a perfect year. That's the way you're going to have a perfect month. That's the way you're going to have a perfect week. That's the way you're going to have a perfect day. You have to always finish it before you start. That is the example we have in God, right? And that just pretty much tells us that one of the very first reasons why plants fail, because people think they are better than God, in example, right? So people then go in and just begin to try to execute, right? So pretty much let's look at this quote here a bit. I was already jumping to the next slide even after this one, because the method that people disregard God's example is the very first reason why plants fail, because people don't plan, right? Plants fail because people don't plan. People just go into execution without planning, and the easy to correct that is that you finish it before you start. Before 2023 starts, you must finish it in your mind. You must, in your mind, conceptualize it. How am I going to start January 1st? How am I going to finish December 31st? Until I'm done with that before I start it. That is how to have a perfect year. Every month, I should be able to finish that month before I start it. That's the way to have a perfect month. Every week, I should finish it in my mind before I start it. That's the way to have a perfect week. Every day, I should finish it in my mind before I start it. That is how to have a perfect day, right? And we'll see Sun Tzu is a Chinese general, who is a guru, a philosophical guru, wrote the book, The Art of War. And he says, victorious warriors win first, then go to war. You don't go to war, then you start thinking about winning. You win in your mind, first of all, before you go to war. And that's what Jesus told us also. He says, will someone go to war? Then you don't find out you don't have enough army when you're at war. He says that's wrong to do, right? He says, first of all, plan. Look, I mean, what do I have against this person? Can I fight the war? Fight that war in your mind. Be sure you have enough. Be sure you are at an advantage. Be sure you can win the war ever before going to the war. That's the example Jesus gives to us. And that's what Sun Tzu is saying here. He says victorious warriors win first, then go to war. Well, while defeated warriors, they first go to war, then they are seeking win. And when they are ready at the war, you're already lost. You got a plan before you execute, right? You got to finish it before you start trying to execute it, right? That's the only way you win in this life, right? And when Rommel, who is a field marshal, German field marshal in World War II, says, sweat saves blood, blood saves lives, and brain saves both of them, right? Edwin Deming also talks about a bad system will beat a good person every time. Man, you can be the best person in this world. If you don't have a plan, you're a failure, right? So it's something that we cannot do without, right? There's no question about it. If you're going to win in this life, you will have to have plans, put plans in place if you're going to win in this life, right? So that's not compromisable, right? So all right, so that's something you cannot compromise. Like I said, that tells us the very first reason why plans fail, right? It's ignorance, right? Plans fail because people are ignorant, right? God says, my people perish for lack of knowledge, right? Plans fail because people are ignorant. And I've divided this into three parts. Ignorance of three things. First of all, ignorant of God and his example in creation, right? Because not only did God show us an example of the fact that you have to finish the work before you start, he has also put in place boundaries, laws, principles by which this whole earth works. If you go into trying to execute or plan without putting into consideration the laws, the principles, the boundaries that God has set, you are sure to fail. You will never win against God's boundaries, God's laws, God's principles, God's way of doing things. You can only win along with them, using them. You can never win against them, right? So if you're going to win in life, you need to understand what are the boundaries set by creation. What are the laws set by creation? What are the principles set by creations? If you are ignorant of these, you are sure to fail, right? The next one is what we call having a SWOT analysis, right? It's a SWOT. When we talk about a SWOT analysis, we're talking about your strength, your weakness, opportunities, and threats, right? So first one is, do you know yourself? Your strength and your weakness is yourself. And when we talk about knowing yourself, we're talking about your personality, right? Who are you? Because you can never win against yourself. If you don't, whatever you're doing must be in line with who you are. Because if you're doing anything that's against who you are, you might succeed in that thing, but you will not be happy. Don't forget there's success, there's also good success. For you to have a good success means that whatever you are trying to win in must be in line with who you are, not against who you are. Otherwise, you are going to be fighting against yourself. The African proverb says that if there's no enemy within, then the enemy outside can have no power over you. But if you have an enemy within, you're already dead. You're already a failure even before you start, right? So you must, whatever it is that you're planning to do in 2023 must be in accordance, in alliance, in agreement with who you are, right? That means you must know what your vision, your calling is. You cannot win against your calling because that's where you had your joy, right? There is what we call calling, there's what we call career, right? Your career is what you do for money. Your calling is what you do for fulfillment. Both of them must not war against each other. Sometimes they are the same thing. Whatever your calling and your career might be the same thing, but that's not true for everybody, right? But Even whether they are the same or different, they must not war against each other. Otherwise, you have an enemy within that is fighting against you. Not the devil. You are fighting against yourself. So you must know what you're calling it. What's your mission in life? You must know your why, your mission. What is your mission in life? You must know your values. You must know your belief system. You can never win against your belief system. If your belief system says that money is the root of all evil, you can never be rich in your life. Even if they give you the treasury of Nigeria, you will not hold it. It will not last in your hand, because your belief system will always have ascendancy against and above every other thing you do. Your life is run by your belief system. Your belief system is the story that has been recorded in your subconsciousness, and that is what is driving your life, right? It doesn't matter what you want to do in life. Your life is driven by the stories you have recorded in your subconscious system. So if those stories are not working for you, you need to work on those stories, because that will always have ascendancy over every other thing in your life, right? So that's your strength and your weakness. All right, I restarted that. So the other thing is now outside of, so we talked about God, inside of you, then outside of you is what we call your environment, right? In your environment now, you need to understand, in line with your plan, what are the opportunities out there and what are the threats out there? How can I gain and harness the opportunities that are available? How can I protect myself against the threat? So whatever it is that I have planned, I have to use it to see how can I harness the opportunities that are available for me, and how can I guide against the threats to my plan, right? You must be knowledgeable about this. If you're not, you're already a failure. Your plan's already a failure, right? So that's the first one, right? And pretty much is gaining knowledge, right, to do that. So we're going to run to the next one. All right, so I'm going to run on to the next slide here, which is what I am already here. It says, so it's pretty much just adding to what we just spoke about, is the fact that, and it's also quoted here by Sun Tzu, right? The Chinese general, philosopher. It says, if you know the enemy and know yourself, you always win, right? Just like we just spoke about knowledge, right? If you know yourself, but you don't know the enemy, for every victory, you're going to have a loss. If you don't know the enemy, then you don't know the threat coming from the enemy. If you don't know yourself and you don't know the enemy, you're not going to succeed. So knowledge is important, right? Ignorance will make you fail. Get the knowledge, right? Let's move on to the next one. All right, moving to the next one, right? It's just talking about the fact that, so we've talked about the need to have a plan and execution, right? Not the way God has shown us an example. What we typically shoot for, right, when we're talking about plan, is that we need to do that plan well, right? When we use the word having a perfect plan will give you a perfect execution. But we all know that perfection is an illusion. Perfection is not possible, right? Because we're only going to be as perfect as the day we die. But for as long as we are alive, everything we do can always be better, right? For us as Christians, there's always going to be a gap between us and Christ. The Bible says is when we see him, then we'll be like him, right? That's when our growth will end. But until then, there'll be a gap that will keep on pressing, right? And so when we use the word perfect execution or perfect plan, we're talking about something we're pressing towards, right? Like Vince Lombardi would say, when we press towards perfection, we will get excellence, or what we might call great, right? So even though I'm using the word perfect plan, what I'm really talking about is as we shoot for perfection, we'll get excellent plan, great execution, excellent execution, right? So when we talk about perfection, all we're talking about is getting all your ducks in a row. I'm not saying all the ducks. You can never get all the ducks in a row, right? You get all the ducks that you know, because you're limited in knowledge, right? You do your due diligence, obviously. You do all that you can do. Do your best. But your best will never be 100% because you're not perfect. but do your best. That's what we're saying when we use the word perfect here. Do your best to get all the ducks in a row. Do your best to cross all the T's and all the I's. Do your best, you're right, to put your best foot forward, right? Don't just do a plan. Hey, this is how we should do a plan. So you just do, I've done a plan. You're bound for failure, right? Your success is as good as the input you put into it, right? If you want a good success, then you have to do a good input, a good planning, right? So it's being focused around it, being disciplined around it, and being diligent about that which you're putting into execution, right? That will make a difference for you, right? So I'm going to run to the next slide, and like I have to, I'm trying to drop it here for those on WhatsApp also. Yes, the lessons learned here is to have someone that's dropping for me, but we're learning. All right, so here is we're talking about, like we said, you know, one of the things that results in failure is when you get stuck, you know, also trying to get the best plan, right? That means you're trying to, and it's for those of us that grew up as perfectionists. You know, I'm a recovering perfectionist, right? You know, I grew up as a perfectionist, you know, and I've lost a lot of money because of being a perfectionist. In the stock market, I used to do a lot of trading on paper, you know, because I love data. I'm an engineer, right? But I lost a lot of money because no matter how good I am on paper, I'm not getting the true effect of the market, right? So there is good to plan. You need to do the best plan that you can, but you never forget that the reason why we plan is to execute, not for the planning's sake. We don't plan for the sake of planning. We plan for the sake of execution. Execution is king. We'll plan not for the sake of planning. We'll plan for the sake of executing. So once I've done my best in planning, it's time to execute. I should not die in planning, right? We call it analysis paralysis. You need to execute. You will never know until you execute. You will never know until you hit the field, right? Your best of plan will never fully represent reality. You only know reality when you go to execute, right? It's always good to have a plan, but know that the best of your plan will never is the word, will never mirror reality. So when you get to reality, you have to be willing and ready to make adjustments to your plan to meet with the real thing you are seeing in the market, right? And because of this, some people don't plan because they say, oh, we never know what will happen. Oh, why should I start planning? We don't know what will happen January 1. I mean, that's foolishness, right? It's always good to plan. Because when you plan, it's easy to modify and make better a plan that you have than when you hit reality and you have no plan. You go into what we call what's the word now? Oh, there's a word for it, but I'm going to describe it. You just get into a place, a track that you're lost in it. You start justifying stupidity if you don't have a plan, right? That's why people die when you have an accident. People die more from fear than the actual accident itself because they don't have a plan. If you have a plan, you follow your plan in a day of crisis. In a day of crisis, you don't have a plan, you're going to get stuck in some foolishness and you'll be just find out foolishness, right? It will not be the crisis that will kill you. It will be your foolishness that will kill you. That is the beauty of having a plan. But you must always know that the best of plan will never mirror reality. So you have to take your plan and be ready to make adjustments, right? When you face reality, but I'm already getting ahead of myself. But the key thing here is that we plan for the sake of execution, not for the sake of planning itself. So when you have done your best planning, it's time to execute. But when you go to execute, know that you'll be ready to make adjustments, right? And that's what Theodore Roosevelt tells us, right? He says, in any moment of decision, the best thing you can do is the right thing. The next best thing you can do is the wrong thing. But the worst thing you can do is do nothing, right? You need to execute. You never know until you execute. You never learn until you execute, right? Let's move on to the next one here. Me drop it for our people. All right. And like I said, that just goes to the second reason why plans fail, right? The second reason why plans fail is people don't execute. People die in planning. They don't execute. They're scared. They're oh, I will lose money. Oh, yeah, everybody has lost money. You learn. You lose money, you learn. You don't lose money, you don't learn. Yeah, what you lose is what you pay for your education. You get better, right? So the first reason people don't succeed is they don't show up. They don't execute, right? They don't make the attempt. They don't start, right? And that's why 80% of people fail. They fail because they don't even start. They don't even make the attempts. They plan, they're scared. And their life is no better, right? 80 to 90% of people are poor just for the reason they don't make the attempt. They are scared. They say there's a lion in the street, so they're not going to go out, right? But they rather beg those that are going out, right? You're only going to die once, you're not going to die twice, right? So you're not going to leave here alive. You're going to die one day. You have to take the risk, So that's the second reason why people fail, right? Let's go. So we'll go on to the third reason why people fail here. All right, so we're going here to the third reason why plans fail, right? And the third reason why plans fail is that people take more than they can handle, right? So what's that? The first reason is ignorance. The second reason is people would not even try. The third reason is that people, when they even try, sometimes they bite more than they can handle for different reasons why they do that. One is because they just want to, I have delayed all these years, I've not been investing. They now say that you have to invest, you have to plan. Let me rush into it. Let me just do everything at the same time. They say you must plan. So you plan, you will succeed. Oh, you finish it before you start. Though, because I've now finished it in my head, I just go and just embrace everything. I mean, that's stupid. Never bite more than you can handle if it fails, right? Don't forget, you always see that time print. Investors or asset managers will tell you, yesterday's success does not guarantee tomorrow's success, right? Because you have to learn your own lesson, right? You have to learn your own lesson, right? Also, you never step into the same river twice, right? What made someone succeed yesterday, he probably didn't tell you the whole story. He gave you a summary. The whole story you probably find out when you go to the field yourself. So never put into your plan what will take you out of the market if you lose it. You need to learn the lessons. You need to prove your plan. Don't forget again, the best of plan will never mirror reality. You need to learn reality yourself when you start executing, right? None of us have been to 2023 before. But there's also nothing special about 2023. It's just going to be like every other year, right? But it will be like the river. You can never step into the same river twice. Waters have moved. You have election. You have different things taking place, right? The whole principles still hold true. Yourself hold true. The environment has changed. God is the same. You are the same. You've probably grown some. The environment has changed. That environment does not stay the same. It's like the river. The water has moved. You need to then test and understand the new realities of the environment and see how your plan will best fit into the new realities of the plan, right? So that's why you don't bite too much at a time. You bite enough that you can control, you can make adjustment, you can learn from and still be in the business, right? So that's what Jim Collins will tell you. Jim Collins wrote two popular books. They're also smaller books for me, but Jim Collins and his partner wrote the book Good to Great, Built to Last, where they looked at different companies and they come up with that most companies fail because they've succeeded in one small thing. They now go and bite more than they can handle and they fail, right? So as you do your plan also, don't be too much in a hurry. Learn the market, learn the environment, and only increase to the extent to which you can handle, right? So you have to prove the opportunities yourself. You have to learn yourself, right? What the market looks like. I'm going to run here to our fourth reason why plans fail here. All right, great. All right, so the fourth reason we'll see why plans fail is because there's a confusion in people's mind, the difference between being strategic and being tactical, right? Two different things. Strategy, tactical. Strategy talks about long-term, right? Tactical talks about short-term. When I do my plan right now, I do a plan for the whole of 2023. Don't forget, even that 2023 is a subset of the plan of my whole life, right? I'm not just going to live 2023. I have a whole life ahead of me. When I look at my whole life, that plan is called a strategy, not a tactic, not a tactics. Or no, it's not tactical, it's strategic. The plan for my whole life is a long-term plan, it's strategic. The plan for my next 20 years is strategic. The plan for my next 10 years is strategic. The plan for my next 5 years is strategic. The plan for 2023 is both strategic and tactical, right? Because that's what immediately before me, right? In a sense, the plan for the whole year as compared to the plan for the month is strategic, right? Whereas the plan for 2023 as compared to the plan for 5 years is tactical, right? You need to understand the difference between the two. One is short-term, one is long-term, right? And the way your understanding of them and the way you apply yourself to them can either make your plan fail or succeed, right? Everyday plan is a tactical plan because that's what is right in my face. So my daily plan as compared to my weekly plan is tactical. My weekly plan is strategic. My weekly plan as compared to my month plan is tactical. My month plan is strategic, right? So when I'm looking at my month, at my 2023 plan as compared to my month's time, my January plan, for instance, right? I'm looking at my 2023 as a strategic plan. What is it I want to achieve as a whole? Then I'm looking at my January plan as tactical. What do I need to do in January that will make sure that my plan for the whole of 2023 will succeed? What part of that 2023 plan I need to face in January, right? So I begin to then look at the tiny details of the plan, right? The other way you look at strategic and tactical is the difference of being outside the frame and inside the frame. When you're inside the frame of a picture, you cannot see the whole picture. If you're a part of the picture, you cannot see the whole picture. You have to be outside the frame of the picture to be able to see the whole picture. So depending on who you are and what you're doing, if you are in the frame, all you can see is tactical. Your strategy will suffer if you are the only one looking at that business. You will miss things in long term. You will be satisfying things in the short term and miss things in long term. And you will make short-term decisions that might be negative to your long-term decisions. So that's why these two are important, because they affect one another, right? For instance, I own a business. I try to stay strategic. I've had this going to be 2 years next year. I've only been to that business 3 times, and it's intentional. I stay away from a tactical. I have a fund manager that handles the tactical issues, right? I am the financier. I'm the person that owns the business. Success or failure of the business is me. I don't have to bother myself with small everyday details. That's why I pay someone to do that. I look at the totality of the success of the business, how this business will be financed, how this business will make money, how this business will be an institution, not just something that will be there when I'm there, how this business will have a life of its own, irrespective of who is running it. That is what I am looking at. And for that, I cannot be in the frame, because if I'm in the frame, I will not be able to see the full picture of the business. So I stay as much away from being in the frame so that I can see that. Why I pay someone to be in the frame to undo the things in the frame, right? So all of that will affect your plan, whether it succeeds or it doesn't succeed. You need to understand the difference between the two of them, right? I'm going to run on to the next one, which will be our fifth and final reason why plans fail. The last reason is people's resistance to change, being rigid. If you're rigid, you're not going to succeed in life, right? And anyone that is rigid and is too much under control is because the person cannot control himself, right? When you see someone that's too much wanting to control everybody, oh, what have you done? What have you done? That's because that person has lost control of himself, right? You cannot give what you don't have, right? If you're in control of yourself, then you are going to give grace. If you're not in control of yourself, and that comes from a place of fear. If you're going to succeed, if your plan is going to succeed, you have to learn to be able to adjust to the reality of time, right? Don't forget again, you're not going to step into the same river 2 times. When you step the next time, each time you step into the river, you have to respect what you see. Don't be stuck to what you planned. Your best of plan will never mirror reality. So when you come to reality, you need to respect reality and make the right adjustment to the reality that you see, right? Like I said, this business I started last year. I sat down in my home in Houston and I was buying business. I was employing people. And while I was there, I had not seen that place, what I was buying. I had utopian plans. I was going to build a chapel. I was going to build a library. I was going to be an office. I was going to do all of those crazy things. The first time I went to that location and I saw the reality on ground, right? All of my utopian plans had to find a footing on the ground, right? Yeah, my utopian plans are good. They keep me excited. But then I have to look at the reality of where we are and what it would take from where we are to get to my utopian plan, right? I have to understand that is strategic. And then I have to break that down into small pieces to the reality of the money I have at hand, right? I am everybody, but God is limited. Whoever you are limited. And it's intentional for you to be limited, because if you're not limited, you will not be forced to think. God wants us to think. That is why he made us a living soul, a living intellect, a living will, a living emotion. We are forced to think because there's a limit to the resource that is released to us part-time, right? We have abundance. We have everything that God has is our own. But God does not release everything part-time, intentionally, because if he does, we will not think. You have to think to make the best of what he has released to you part-time. And that involves you respecting reality, right? All right, I'm going to stop there, and I'm just going to open this up to questions here. So if you type it, we can do it live, whichever way you want the questions to go. I'm okay with that, So that's pretty much is it. I've talked about 5 reasons why plans fail, Feel free, you can ask questions on anything around that or any other thing at all. Feel free, and I can do it live or I can do it offline, wherever you want it. So I'm gonna wait. If I have any live questions, I'll handle it. Otherwise, if you paste it anyway, either on YouTube, paste it on WhatsApp, I'll come back to it later and I will answer you. All right, I open the floor. And Jaffe, thanks for coming on Zoom with me. I appreciate that.
Good morning, sir. Thank you so very much for the...
Is that GT?
No, it's not GT.
Oh,
this
right.
is Jaffe.
Jaffe, yeah. Thank you. I love it. Thanks for coming on. Did you get anything out of what I said? Any question for me?
Absolutely. So in fact, I'm wowed. I think for me, there are so many things I have to unlearn. So many things I have to unlearn and relearn based on what I've just heard. I'm going to ask a question, but I just try to gather my thoughts. So I'll be shooting my question shortly. Thank you so very much,
Dr.
Really
thank you. Thanks for the feedback. I appreciate it.
Awesome. This is awesome.
Thank you. So, oh, sorry, we did all of that. I didn't keep our WhatsApp people. I didn't put the audio, but I put the audio back on now. So, we're pretty much at the end of that for our WhatsApp group. You know, if there's any question for me, just let me know. You know, I can answer your questions right now live, or we can do it later. You know, whichever works for you. So, Brother GT, are you going to open? You're going to open the WhatsApp so that people can drop their questions. I want to see if I can answer some live, but if there's not, I can always take it later. So while we're waiting for people to answer, I'm just going to quickly run through the 5 points we raised as per why plans fail. We said one is ignorance, and we need to know, like the Bible tells us, you know, my people perish for lack of knowledge. It would help to it would help if we know. And we said 3 things we need to know. We need to know about God, the way He has set up His universe. Then we need to know about ourselves and the environment. I see Jeff is ready to ask this question, so let me break and have him ask. Go ahead.
Yes, Dr. Akin. I want to ask, okay. I'm into farming, okay. I'm into farming.
I'm a farmer also.
Okay, so now you make plans, okay, and sometimes your plans, right, are dependent on others.
Absolutely.
Okay, and you don't have control over all the variables. Okay, now in terms of you know, changes, being flexible, and you know, having the success of those plans in mind, how do you accommodate that when some of those variables are not in your control, they are dependent on others? Because that has been a key you know, issue in my business.
Great.
For example, your farm workers, for instance, there can be some predictable at times. You know, your farm inputs, they are not they are not in your control. You may get to the market today, you know, you just notice drastic changes in terms of you know, regular input that you use and all of that. So those variables are not in your control. How do you manage that in ensuring that your plans succeed?
Great question. You know, and like I said, I have a farm also. I have 60 acres of farmland. So there are things. So that's what we said about knowledge earlier on, right? You need to know what the opportunities are and what the threats are. Part of the threats are the things that are outside your control, your workers, the people that work for you, right? I'm about to sack my very first employee, you know. So we need to understand, because you need trust. If I tell you I've only been to my farm 3 times, it's because I have someone that I trust. And I've told him if I have to come more regular to the farm, it means that I'm getting ready to sack him, right? So, so you need to know the people. We've sacked my first employee. We've also got a supervisor for the farmers who have to let go, you know, because he stole, you know. So it's the people that are working for you. You have to know what your own what your boundaries are, what you will take and what you will not take, right? You know, so you have to settle in your mind, what are the minimum I want to take from these people, right? Because for me, when I sacked the first person that was working for me, I believe she's yet to recover from what I did, right? Because she didn't see it coming. I mean, I don't look like someone that can sack somebody, but the way I sacked her, I'm sure she's still trying to recover, right? Because for her, she had crossed the line for me. right? First of all, is that she made money, a whole lot of money from me. She was still planning to make a whole lot of money from me. I mean, these are not right money, more like stealing.
Okay.
But I still let all of that go. But one thing I could not compromise was having people working for me that were not united. But she was creating a very unworkable environment between her and the next person working for me. And I didn't want that kind of spirit. You know, I sent several people to correct her, but she still held to her ways. So I just let her go. And I just shut down every communication channel to her, right? So that is one of the things I would compromise. The other thing, the supervisor for the farmers, you know, when we saw that he was taking something, it was a no-go for me. We let him go, right? So you have to determine in your mind what are the things you want, because these are the threats. You know, what you're talking about here is what we call threats to your business, right?
Yes.
So you have to ask yourself, what kind of people do I want to work for me? And typically, you don't employ people to make them the kind of people you want them to work for you. You go employ the kind of people that you want. Because your business is not a training, you are not doing a farm as a training ground.
Wow. Yeah.
So you don't go and employ people that you want to train. You employ the kind of people that you want to work for you. Do you understand? So you have to determine what are the minimum criteria for the people I want to work for me. For instance, if we're building a poultry, right? I've already decided that it's more important for me to get people I can trust than people that have experience. So the people I'm trying to employ have zero experience on poultry, but they are the kind of people I can trust because I've worked with them in other areas. Okay. So those are the people I'm going to employ. I will employ them and train them because I've decided that their personality is more important than their expertise.
Okay.
You understand? That is a decision I have made. So when I go out to employ, I'm not just employing anybody. I'm employing people that can work with me. Then I can give them whatever the shortfall is.
Sure.
Right? Because rather than me going to employ someone that is experienced, but I cannot sleep at night.
Oh yeah.
You understand? Yeah. So your success or failure of your business is in your employment. You employ success. You don't just employ. So that's one of the ways you treat those people that work for you. Then you can make mistakes because you're not perfect, right? You might employ the wrong person. Then you have to decide how to cut the person off.
Recruitment error.
Recruitment error, you cut the person off, and you're allowed. You are human, you make mistakes. You learn from that to employ better the next time. You understand? Does that help?
Thank you so very much. I appreciate these thoughts. I mean, it's yeah. I mean, going forward, know what to look out for. Thank you so very much.
And feel free, we can exchange details. If you're a farmer, I'm a farmer. We can always connect. There's no
problem.
Just all of us.
I'm into poultry farming.
I'm building a poultry. I'm building a very big poultry, 30,000 bed capacity boat poultry. That's
wow,
what I'm
that's not big. That's huge. That's not big. Come on. That's huge.
It'll be nice to learn a lot from you. So if you don't mind, send me a note afterwards and we can connect.
No problem, sir. No problem, sir. Thank you so very much. I really appreciate this opportunity.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
God bless. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.